How you doing, Matt? Good to see you.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Obviously I know you as my barber, my friend, the guy probably the guy I talk to about things that I don't talk to about with anybody else. But
I appreciate that. I don't know if
give me
you
a little
should give me
background
that.
on you, man.
Just regular guy, man. A husband with a beautiful wife, 2 kids. They're girls. They drive me nuts. But grew up in St. Lena Parish, Amy, St. Lena Parish. You know that area. So kind of back and forth from Tangipahoa Parish, St. Lena Parish. My father was a principal at the high school that I attended. My mom worked for my grandfather, and then eventually my aunt at a little drugstore in Roseland. Um, just regular old guy, I
Born and
guess.
raised
Nothing
country
special.
boy from Louisiana.
That's
All
right.
Yep.
That's right. Ended up, as a kid, we grew up like anybody else, playing in front yards and backyards and baseball and that kind of riding our bikes. But as I got a little older, got into some craziness and kind of went off the rails for a little bit, but got it back on track. And I own a barbershop in Hammond, Louisiana called the Bearded Barber.
Yeah, so
And
that's
there's
kind of
six of us there.
I wanted to start sort of there because obviously you're a business owner in the area, has a great gig going there. It's the only place I've ever kind of really felt comfortable as a guy since I was a kid back in the days of sanitary barber, you know.
Man, I appreciate that.
but I do want to touch on some of those, moments of life that might be, adversity that you had to overcome or whatever. But, for right now, so you're the Bearded Barber in Hammond, Louisiana. You got 6 of us, you said
I
there,
do.
right?
There's 6. Well, including me, there's 6 of us, right? I
Yeah.
got 5 guys. I do some apprenticeships there, so I have 1 apprentice now, and actually I have 2. One should have already taken his test, but he's dragging his feet on it. I'm about to strangle him over it.
So aside from the business owner side, though, like what's the true day-to-day like with being a barber? Because I get the feeling now, knowing you better, it's a little bit of psychologist too.
It is. You get a lot of people in your chair from different walks of life, and there's a lot of different issues. One thing's for certain, man, if anybody is struggling out there and they feel alone, you need to stop that, right? Because everybody's struggling. Look, guys, a lot of people in this world think that money, will change an issue in life. And it will, right? It will make certain things in your life better, but it also can bring some struggles. I have millionaires for family members. I have friends of mine that do very, very well. And I talk to all of them. Probably like Jeff said, in a lot of ways that they don't talk to other people. I'm not going to go into any detail of these. I'm not going to go into any detail of these issues, but one thing I can guarantee you is that they're all struggling, right? Whether that be with them, mentally, whether they feel like they're good enough or they're not, or they're trying to get some kind of approval from somebody, and no matter how much money they may have or not have, right?
Do those people come in though, and do you get the sense that some of these guys, they're looking for that counseling session, or do you have to pull it out of them?
No, without a doubt. Look, one of the most wealthiest families in this parish, there was a man, he's passed now, but he knew that I wasn't a huge fan of him. Was married to a childhood friend of mine. And he would come in once a year and he would start telling me these things that he was doing to her and his children, and almost like he was looking for sympathy from me. And I'd always tell him, I said, man, I'm not going to give you any sympathy. Like, you know that I don't agree with what you're saying, and then if you don't get right, basically, you got a lot of answering to do for what you're doing in life. And he goes, Matthew, I didn't come here for you to tell me it was okay. He said, I needed to hear what I'm doing is wrong. We didn't even get along in life. He's disliked me since high school.
Yeah.
And of course, I was childish, and it was childish things that he disliked me for then. I didn't have any issues with him, to be honest. But as he married this girl and their relationship grew, I grew almost to not hatred for the man, but very disdain for him. And it really took my relationship with Christ for me to oversee that and just see him as a broken person, no different than I was, no different than I am right now, because we're all broken in some way. And if you don't have Christ, there is no answer.
But do you find that these guys that come in, well, let me say it a different way. It seems like it's a trait that my wife has as well. No matter where we go or what we do, someone is going to seek her out and speak to her and almost even confess things. Do you find that they do this to you even outside the barbershop? Is it part of your personality, or
No,
is it something about the place
I think
and the atmosphere?
it can happen but typically guys that I already know, right, would in public somewhere. But that barber, man, just that setting and the safeness of it, right? But that's a relationship that has to be built from the barber, right? That environment has to be established, because not everybody is your secrets aren't safe with every barber. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be honest with you, right? But that's one of the things that I feel like makes a good barber, and that's why. And I hate to say this, but that's why I do believe you have barbers out there that are successful that can't cut hair.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that they have a great attitude toward life. They're able to listen, and guys feel safe talking to them and saying things in a place there. Even if you want to rant and rave about something, for the most part, most men understand, hey, that's the barbershop, right?
Yeah.
That, even if we leave out of here and that guy doesn't ever act like that again, it's not so much that he's a hypocrite. That's the barbershop, right? We can say things, and that was like, the way I was raised was, you act a certain way in front of women and children, right? And I've had a lot of ladies over the years that wanted to work at my barbershop, but if I hired a woman, you wouldn't feel that way anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a way men act and want to be able to, not that we're scared of them or anything, but it's like sometimes, especially with society today, right? Everybody's so worried about what the other guy thinks of them. And it's almost like, as much as I gripe about the pansies in this country today and the way boys are raised, but it's almost like a safe space for guys to go to, that I think that men have always had, but we lost kind of that I feel like maybe through the 90s, the early 2000s, middle 2000s, those barbershops were starting to die off. Those places for you to go to other than a bar, there wasn't many of them.
Well, I think today too, it's like you get a little bit ruined by the technology of things, right? I mean, I got to be honest. There's some days I'm in there and it's just guys, shooting the shit, and there's other days that guys are saying things, and I'm like, whoa, man, that's a little off. And I'm like, is anybody recording? Anybody videoing this?
No, 100%. So in my barbershop, I can't say all of them, but there's always somebody watching to make sure there ain't nobody recording or videoing.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're very aware of. And we from time to time, and it's, I guess over the years I've learned to really, it catches my eye. But we've been in the middle of plenty conversations when, like, say, I got a fella in there that's a little more, is about as outspoken as me, not quite as much, Ryan, and not to say that he doesn't do a great job, and I don't love him to death, working with him over the years, but he gets pretty involved in his conversations. He's not always, watching what's going on everywhere else. And the mom will pull a phone out wanting to video her son for the first haircut. And I'm like, hey, Ryan.
And that's the story in the background.
Well, it's not, because I stopped that story from going on in the background. And it's not that it may be like it's something that shouldn't be said, right? But it's something that is okay to be said in our environment, right? With our echo chamber.
No, I agree. I mean,
most other, you might have other echo chambers out there that don't agree to that. And with social media and the way that we're all connected today, it's almost like you truly, it's just one more stress that's been put on us as parents and humans and bosses and workers, that we're always watched.
When it comes to guys, at least, having two boys, you're not getting the same sort of male role models necessarily at school.
Oh, you're absolutely not.
I don't know. You get it's not so much the guy's fault, but there's only so many things you can say or do. This idea of toxic masculinity or whatever. But when we go to the barbershop, I know I leave there feeling like we've accomplished to some degree what you would try to accomplish with your sons if you went off fishing or hunting with them or something like that.
Oh, 100%.
Right? You're hanging out with some other guys. They're getting an impression of how some other guys have dealt with an issue or some things they say or just how they act or whatever. And then I get the opportunity too on the ride home to be like, kind of rehash it again. Like, you heard what he said there. Like, that's something that we've never talked about, but that's a good lesson to learn.
Even if I tell dads a lot, that even if it's something, your kid hears something that they shouldn't have, or they hear a word that they shouldn't repeat, now there's the opportunity for that ride home to say, all right, look, man, that was a barbershop. There's a bunch of men hanging out in there. They probably shouldn't have said that in front of you, but this is a good time for you to know, hey, I don't ever want to hear that come out of your mouth, right? Me and your mama don't speak that way, but and then just on the opposite side of that, maybe it's something that you didn't want to bring up with your son.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys were in the shop the other day, and I don't know how it got brought up, probably in my head, like most of our conversations was, did your dad or mom ever have the conversation of the birds and the bees with you? And I'm like, well, mine certainly didn't, right? And everybody in the shop, all my guys was like, no, none of them, right? And then Ryan said, no, my dad had it with me. And one of the customers said the same thing. And then the customer said, well, look, it was actually in a barbershop. He said, I went in there and he said they had a calendar on the wall of this good looking woman in a bathing suit. And of course I got caught staring at it, and they all started, my dad's friends were picking on me. And then from that, the conversation evolved, and my father had the conversation with me. He said, really, my dad and all his buddies had that conversation
That's a good
with
natural
me.
progression too,
It
though.
is.
Yeah. And
it's
the
a
edge
natural,
is taken off.
right?
Yeah.
It's just 100% natural in a young man's life. And I think that's a very hard conversation for some men.
Yeah.
I don't have sons, so I guess this is a little, it's probably a little off-putting for me to say this without truly knowing. I don't feel like that's a problem that I would have, because it wouldn't have been a problem for me to have with my daughters. I'm a little, not that by any means are we not very modest around our household, but I'm very open about conversations that my daughters want. Now, look, some of them I'm very standoffish about also, but, if it's whether or not I need to educate my daughter on what could or could not happen out there, we're going to go ahead and have those conversations, right? Two, no different than, say, my drug addiction throughout life, right? My mother and my grandmother would get so upset when they would know that I was having that conversation. Man, I did an interview with the Southeastern newspaper when I first opened, and I told them, the whole story. They want to know how I got started, how I got into barbering. It was, and I know I'm going to probably bring this whole conversation back to him, but Jesus was involved in that, right? And I told that story to the paper, and my mother and my grandmother was like, Matthew, people are going to think a certain way. I said, look, if 99 of the 100 people that read that look at me in a negative way, but one guy that's struggling with drugs, just one, can say, hey, if that dude did it, I did it. Yeah. I can do it. Because look, man, by no means was that something simple, and by no means did I have anything to do with that, right? Now, I had to make the choice to want it, but the fight that came behind it was my mama, my daddy, my wife, and Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ being the first and foremost, because the dominoes that failed to get me there could only have been a hand of God.
Well, that's something that I was wondering if you would, bring up today, and I'm just curious for, kind of to, I guess, elaborate on it to be more specific. Like, what does that look like? Like, how long does it take to go from
clinically, I think they tell you that however many years you were addicted to the drug is how long it'll take you to completely 100% mentally get away from it.
And do you find that to be the case?
I ain't got there yet. I'll let you know. Man, there's days that most days nothing, right? No big deal.
Yeah.
There's some days that it's the first thing I can taste it in my mouth before I open my eyes in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I got clean, and I've been married 19 years. 17 years ago, I've been clean 17 years.
Yeah.
So long time. I say that, but actually, maybe I've been sober longer than I was on drugs now. Now that I'm sitting here thinking
you hadn't looked back. You're that far removed. Good.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you, man. That time in my life it was the only time in my life when I look back that didn't go by with a blink of an eye. I guess I have so many regrets. Not regrets. I wouldn't change any of it, because I don't think we'd be having this podcast. You wouldn't be talking to me today. Yeah. The way you become an absolute ace at manipulation as a drug addict is just unbelievable. Mm. And the things that I put my parents through, and that's another thing, man. You learn how to stop accepting accountability, because we were very much raised and taught that when we were raised by my father. I'd like to say the best man that ever walked this earth besides Jesus was my dad. I wouldn't expect to get this emotional about
Well,
it. But,
I have a question if it helps kind of break it up a little bit for you. I'm just curious as a parent now. Like, is there anything,
no,
nothing they could have done?
no.
It
My
had
parents had nothing to do with it.
bearing on you ended up
No,
going that route. And
nothing. My
was it
daddy
just a,
took me to the fork in the road and said, son, you will be 100% successful or you won't. And can we take a break?
yeah, man, for sure.
You know, I forgot. When we were talking, man, it just,
But your parents, your dad gave you the
yeah,
fork
no,
in the road kind
you
of.
know, my dad was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Had the opportunity to really, really be successful. Not that he wasn't. He had the opportunity to truly be way more financially
He
successful than he
chose some
was.
service over the financial gain.
He chose his exact words. I wanted to kiss y'all goodnight every night.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 4 of us. And after seeing what his death did to my family, I don't know how it would have worked if he wouldn't have been there, because the way it crushed some of us, it was very eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I can't get.
It's all right, man. I mean, it's a funny thing. You know, I hearing you talk about it, you wonder almost like, man, like I feel the same way about my dad too. And it's just like, are our kids going to think that, or did we really screw them up enough that?
Nah, man. So it's very hard as a dad, I think, or just a man that wants to be a good man, to see that, right? Mm-hmm. And I see it in you. You might not see it, but you know, you're there, and there's a lot of things that you worry about that you shouldn't.
All right, let's divert for a little bit. So, from the business perspective, you know, you've started from scratch in a business that is extremely local, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you got to have people here locally that want to come see you. And what I always kind of find, I don't mean to say like funny, but interesting from my like background, is having gone through, you know, the formal education and being a lawyer, and there's a certain persona, good and bad, that comes with that sometimes, whatever, and knowing how you have to act and look and all this like that. I feel like sometimes, you know, I get here and I'm like, man, I wish I could just be myself a little bit more like Matt is at his job. Did you go in that way, or did you get comfortable, you know, as time went on more?
I guess different areas, right? We're very much in that hometown, you know. When I worked in Metairie, it was very much so I felt like I put not a facade, but I was not who I was, right? I watched what I said.
You thought people expected there.
Well, really, I was very lucky, man. You know, you say that I started from scratch, and I guess technically I did, but when I tell y'all that when the dominoes started to fall, that's why the only answer could be Jesus. I know it's Jesus, but like, if for someone to watch and look into me, they would want to call it luck, and that's hard for me to say that, because it's not, right. Yeah. I believe that it's Christ. I see men work their asses off, literally. Well, not literally, but you get what I'm saying. Like, work their asses off. They're never home. They're gone. There's this one kid, I've been cutting his hair since he was probably 3, right? Yeah, I've met his dad twice because the man's gone so much. Great family. I feel like I know the guy because that's all I hear about him while they're there.
And a guy probably trying to provide for his family, 100%. Like trying to run from
but
it,
what and he's done well in life. You know, he does well for himself. But I see so many other men that way that just don't. They get to the finish line and they're about to grab that winning, you know, taper or tape, and they just. Some dude passes them up, man. It's in their hands and they can't get it. And then I look at myself and I always ask the question, it's like, well, what did I do, right? What did I do to deserve this? And I have no answer for it. But so let's just start from jump, right? I'm a drug addict in every aspect of the word. Needles in my arms, smoking crack. Technically never did heroin, but I put Oxycontins in a needle, really no different. The one Fat Tuesday since I was 14, I'm probably 20, maybe 21 at this point, 22, and maybe I was 22. Anyway, somewhere around in there, right? and I'm working at BASF. The first Fat Tuesday, I'm not intoxicated somehow since I was 14. And we worked all day, worked some extra overtime. I had a apartment in Baton Rouge. I had a place in Amite I was staying at. And my mom calls and says she had made some Mississippi mud. And I said, well, I'll come home tonight. Never made it. I hit a tree doing 105. I fell asleep. From that, I had to go into the hospital, obviously, right? Stayed in there a good while. I would have gotten clean in the hospital because I was in there so long, but they had me on drugs the whole time, right? So I come home, I end up getting clean because I'm out at my father's house in a hospital bed. And my mom gets a flyer. Now, check this out, right? She gets a flyer in the mail for an x-ray and cleaning for $29 at a rural dentist office. My brother has to drive me out there. I asked the hygienist for her phone number. Most expensive teeth cleaning I've ever had in my life. I'm still paying for it 21 years later, but it was the best, right?
How lucky,
She's the best. And then going forward, I don't know, probably 2 weeks after I meet her, some buddies of mine, one was a barber, talks me into going to barber school. And I'm like, man, that's probably not for me. But I really felt like I was in a place in my life where with the drugs and the things that I'd been doing that I really needed to show the people that had loved me, that never gave up on me, no matter how horrible I made things, right? That I could accomplish something, that I was going to set my head to something, I was going to do it. I was going to show them that I could be something, right? And just it all kind of fell in place after that. I went to barber school. You know, when I got out of barber school, I ended up getting a job at the busiest barbershop in Metairie, in Old Metairie. I mean, if you had money and lived in Old Metairie, you probably came in that barbershop. And the man that owned that barbershop taught me what I needed to know about barbershops to be successful in a barbershop. My father taught me what I needed to be successful in life. I don't want to get that mixed up here, right? And my father taught me a lot of great things about business because my uncle had a hardware store growing up. My dad worked there. We worked there with him. You know, a lot of great memories and a lot of great lessons learned at that hardware store and a lot of good men that I was raised around.
But business-wise, I can see that a guy who's done it 20 years,
oh yeah,
he can tell you what to focus on, and you kind of know or disregard the rest, not because he's just saying it, but because he's already made those mistakes.
That's correct. And I don't, you know, I've never had, my mother would say I'm hard-headed, right? But I've never had an issue taking advice from other men that I know are accomplished in life, right? You know, I tell guys all the time, if you came in my shop and I needed you to do something with what you do every day, and you called and asked me, I would look at you and go, Jeff, I cut hair for a living, brother. That's what you do. You know, so I would take advice from you on those things, and I do. And I 100% respect every bit of advice you ever give me. But that man, you know, I knew to take what he said and run with it. And I think that's where a lot of young men screw up when they have these opportunities with these unbelievable mentors in their field, right? They might be the biggest piece of shit everywhere else in life, okay? But when you work under him and he's giving you vital information and maybe you don't even like 100% the way he treats you or maybe the way he's doing things, but you see his success. And if you know he's honest and he's doing that successfully, then maybe you need to shut the hell up and sit down and learn from that person.
I think what's important there too is like there's a time period associated with vetting whether that's a guy you can trust to give that advice. And I think the problem that we see these days, because I've had them work for me. I've had people that come on and work with me and they within months become influencers and they want to talk to everybody about everything they know. And I'm like, man, I'm not even sure I feel confident enough after practicing for 20 years to get out there and broadcast myself as the expert. But there's so many guys out there watching. I have clients come in. What about this? What about that? I'm like, it doesn't even apply to this state. But it's like, for some reason, them being on a screen has validated them to the same level and extent that this guy who you got to watch in sort of every sort of walk of life over a period of time to help support, hey, this is a guy I can trust and that he knows what he's doing, you know, so that guy's, easy in the sense of like, you can trust him, but it took a long time to get there. Everybody else just automatically applies. You're on a screen, you're an expert, and I can trust you, and I can run with that advice. And I think that's where a lot of people get themselves in trouble these days.
I agree with you 100%. A lot of that comes from, again, going back to kind of social media and how this last generations have been brought up, right? Me and you, we've spent time with our friends. We've spent time with our parents. We've spent time with people we don't even know, right? You go off to college, you got to be introduced to other people. You got to spend time. You get to know these people, right? You've been raised in a generation of people that were raised the same way, to where, look, you probably need to get to know that guy before you trust him, right? You don't need to throw all your eggs into that one basket. Well, today, everybody is friends with someone on a screen. There's no physical, where you can see that person and interact with that person and truly know if that person has not got kids tied up in their basement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many of these influencers do we see? They got specials on Netflix about them now.
Yeah.
And there's 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 people that follow them and mimic their life behind them.
The likes and follows validates everything. And
you're 100% correct. But the problem is, this is a big place that we live in America, right? And we've had a serious issue with mental health in the last, 10 years, 15 years. I know personally here in Louisiana, when Bobby Jindal, look, I'm conservative as the day is long, but he was one of the worst ones we've ever had. He shut down every mental hospital in the state. He sold off all our shit.
I was juvenile public defending at that time, and I would agree with that. It was, we had a kid as an example who was well over probably 6'3", 6'4", 280-ish, 300 pounds, at a local public school, schizophrenic, threat of violence and rape and everything else. Nowhere to put him. Just let him walk the streets.
That's right. And that's where we're at to this day. So what we have to remember is that you very well could be putting trust in those likes that a bunch of blue-haired 6'4" men that wear dresses are the ones that hit the like.
Yeah.
You have no idea who are the 100,000 people that are amping this guy up, and that whether or not you know what he's doing behind the scenes, or whether that he is truly even as successful in life and in what he does. It's very simple for us to throw this backdrop up here. It's super nice. And look, guys, this place is super nice. Don't get me wrong. But it's very easy that when we walk out of here, the doors are falling off the place, or everybody in this joint, that it's only the three of us, right? That there's no other workers here. You guys don't know that, and y'all take that for granted, like, it's the God's gospel.
But that leads me to the question that is sort of the point of the podcast too, in a way, when I started it. Like, so what are some real practical things that you would say you can, and I'm not going to say it proves why you were successful to some degree, but like in my case, it's like, I got to get up at a certain time. I got to make sure I do certain things. I did every aspect of the job I could to save money in order to make money, but it also gained experience. Like, what are some things that you would say that helped you, push through, become successful, that maybe others haven't tried or should try? Or
so in the beginning, and I think that's the reason you get up and do things, right, changes as you get older and look back at stuff. But originally, I basically quit school in the 9th grade, right? Now, I graduated high school, but as far as retaining information, I cut it off about halfway through the 9th grade, even if I started the 9th grade with that outlook, right? So there was really no choice for me. It was going to be hard work whether I wanted it to or not. Now, whether that meant back-breaking actual hard work or just long hours somewhere.
15 hours a day.
That's correct, right? And whatever, even if it was to sit in a chair, I knew I was going to have to grind to get it done. And two, again, working for that man in Metairie, I learned that men that can learn how to treat other people and just give that other man the benefit of the doubt, whether he's 3 minutes late or, he needs you to get there at 5 a.m. one morning and start cutting hair. you do that. Now, don't get me wrong. I get up early in the morning. I guess it's I used to think it was just being old, but I know a bunch of old dudes that don't get up early in the morning. But, I do. So if I was going to be up, and my family's asleep, and now this is today, right? And I had the option to be away from my family and make money. I want to do it the least amount that I have to miss being with them.
Sure.
So, you know, if I can get up and make a half day's pay before 11 o'clock in the morning, I mean, I don't understand why you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe some men can't do it. I don't know. The word can't's real funny to me. I don't think it needs to be in our vocabulary any at all, but people constantly use it because the only thing that's stopping you is between your ears. I mean, look, dude, it's very easy for you to get on Facebook or Instagram and go look up some third world country where a dude ain't got no legs and he ain't got no arms and the dude's making mud bricks for a living every day, sitting flat on his ass with some nubs.
Yeah.
Right. And then you got people that live in this country. We got fat homeless people, bro. Think about that. You get to the red light. They got this 6'4", 355-pound chick with a $9 bag of chips and a Starbucks drink in her hand. I'm
turning down other food.
That's right. You know, don't want to take your change because you ain't giving no cash.
Yeah.
You know, it's
laugh,
very
but it's
funny
sad.
to me.
It is. Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
It's hard. And look, man, I don't want to get off on, you know, too much of politics, which I would love to do that one day and let people listen. But it's got a lot to do with a lot of stuff. You know, used to, I would say it's just lazy, but
I do wish people would dig a little deeper into the people that they're politicians, the people that they are trusting to mentor them or their kids or the owners of the businesses that they're dealing with. You know, I wish they would dig into that a little bit more and then take a little bit of time to, once you feel like you want to trust somebody, to kind of look at other aspects of their life, because this is a emperor's new clothes world to me. I'm always telling my wife that, like, everybody is fake. You know, this guy's naked over here saying he lives in the greatest, you know, garments ever made. And it's like, no one wants to call it out. They all want to be a part of the group and they all want to go with the flow. And it's like, that's what I like. One of the things I like the most, I guess, about coming in when I come see you.
We'll get on that real quick. So listen, guys, I'm not telling anybody else to go do anything, but you hear it constantly. You know, it's the rawness of a person. It's the trueness of a person that people are looking for today because of what you just said, right? Look, if you just take your politicians, right? We get all these like 3-second sound bites from these guys, and y'all think y'all know them, and then you want to vote them in. And think they're going to change something.
They want to ridicule you if you don't vote them in.
That's correct.
You know? Like, you're a terrible person.
And then you come to find out that they're like sexting and harassing their you know, young women that work for them. And like one guy in Texas, I think he was a Republican politician. One girl set herself on fire to make a point because of what he was doing to her, and nobody would listen to her. I mean, and then you guys, including me, look, anything I say today, guys, I'm at fault for it. I'm not preaching to anybody about this stuff. But a lot of times I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, that my shop, right, and what we do there is that we are, right, and I don't have any problem telling you your truth. So I say this to people all the time, especially young couples, right? You have a young couple, they're madly in love with each other, and they have one kid at home, stay-at-home mom. That's a hard thing nowadays, man, super hard. And you got this guy, and he's gone 7 days a week, 12 hours a day in another state away from his family, and he's working his tail off, sending every penny home to his wife, and he's providing for them, right? It might not be a glorious life, but they're eating, there's a roof over their head, and their kids have diapers on their ass. And she's on Facebook. Every night, she's at home crying with this kid in her arms. She feels like a single mother, and she sees this other woman that's living that same life, but her husband is this awesome guy. And somehow he figures out how to be home on the weekends, and that the birthday parties are awesome and all that. And then eventually that couple that was madly in love, she starts to doubt her man, right? And she starts to question why she can't get all that. And then eventually that young girl ends up divorcing that boy and leaves him over a life that was never there, ever. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is anybody that watches this that feels like somebody on one of those Instagram or Facebook or TikTok is doing it better or has it better, you just remember your local barber hears the truth.
I bet you do, from those people and the others after that guy leaves.
When your wife comes in the barbershop And she starts telling one of the barbers in a haste moment, her kid's pitching a fit, how horrible of a guy you are, and how you're home drinking beer. She's been here fighting with this kid and this and that. And then you come in a couple weeks later, get your hair cut because you don't want your son interfering with your barber time. And you start telling me how bad your wife is, and the problems. And I know you got a girlfriend and, you're living two lives. But then a week later, for some reason, somebody sends a message to the shop, and I go on there and look on Facebook. And well, here y'all are, the perfect little family. When I know that's a lie.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's so many moms or so many dads out there that are believing this shit. I'm telling y'all, most of it's a lie.
Yeah.
There's very, very, very few people out there that are. And when I say few, like I don't know if I know any of them. I know most Tangipahoa pairs. And I don't know any of them that don't have an issue. I know millionaires who don't talk to their children.
Yeah.
I know, poor guys that don't get to see their grandkids. And I know men and women that ain't got a dollar to their name that are the happiest SOBs you ever met in your life. One of the guys I'm the most jealous of in my life is a friend of mine. And I wish I could say his name, but I'm going to put his finances out there.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put them both. But this guy probably made maybe $40,000, $45,000 a year, if that. And that was toward the end of his life. Now, right now, he's doing really, really well, and I'm so proud of him. He's running the whole shebang.
He was happy at 40.
But what I'm getting at, not only was he happy, man, with no money, he raised two boys, and every day at 4 o'clock, he went fishing with them. He coached both of them at baseball, never missed a baseball game, never missed a fishing tournament. Never did not go hunting with them. Every weekend in a boat, squirrel hunting on the Tangipahoa River. And he's probably one of the best dudes I know, other than you. And I mean, he did it with $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
And when his kids were real little, you're talking $25,000. And we all believe that we have to have all this shit to be happy.
Yeah.
All you got to have is your wife, your kids, and Jesus Christ. Look, dude, when you have somebody that's not healthy,
yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
I mean, people nowadays have no idea.
Well, it all becomes distraction. And I was thinking that too when you were talking earlier about your dad. It's another question you've got, like a wonder, I guess, of mine as you're raising kids and growing up is like, on the one hand, you're almost trying to be that example. So you're trying to work hard, trying to show them how to work hard, how to push through, and also provide the best possible life you can give them. But there's a fine line between that and like, well, how much of that could I have given up? And they still learned how to work hard, but you had more time with them, and like, where was that trade-off? Because you passed it up, or maybe it's just one of those things like, it's not necessarily like you're saying like, you don't have regrets, but there are things you look back on and you're like, maybe I wouldn't change it because I don't know it would have gone better the other way, but you didn't hit it out the park. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, there's so many things. And then you wake up one day and it's like they're all ready to get out the house.
That's right.
It's like,
and you thought you were this horrible failure, and didn't, make the right decisions. And here they are now successful and raising their kids. It's nice to see a guy successful in life. It is when it comes to finances and business. But really what's mattered to me, and I guess it's just getting older and starting to realize we're not going to be here forever, right, is success in your family life would be probably pulls more respect from Matthew than so much what you got in your bank account.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, it's always a plus if you get both of them, right?
Yeah.
But because your bank account doesn't really matter.
Can't take it with you.
When you die, but also when, like, if say your child gets sick, right? So when mine got sick, I was at a point in my life where I was really starting to get successful. I was making more money than I've ever made in my life. We didn't have to wait 3 days to pay our house note after the fact, finally. And I'm not poor mouthing. It's just struggle, right?
Sure.
Everybody does it, right? Everybody's going to have time in the beginning to where it's just tight. It happens and that's another thing young people have to understand. You're never going to start where Papa ended up.
Yeah.
That's like people always want to say, man, that barbershop money. Look, dude, I got rid of a brand new Denali, GMC Denali, because I got so sick of hearing people say Man, that barbershop money must be good. Well, that barbershop money is good.
Yeah.
When you get up at 5 a.m. Well, actually, when you get up at 3:30,
Get to
and
work
you're
for
at
5.
work for 5 a.m.
Yeah.
and you do more haircuts by 11 o'clock than some days that the rest of the guys do all day.
Yeah.
You know, that's the grind. If you want to know how people are successful, that's it. Well, guys like us. I'm not saying there aren't guys out there whose dads gave it. Jeff's dad was worked in the plants, just like everybody else's dad in South Louisiana. But he's a success story, and you can be too.
Yeah.
If you quit blaming everybody else for your failures and your slow times, look, I had some guys leave me, some apprentices. I'm happy for them, right? I left a man, and I had to start a business, right? So I'm happy for them. No hard feelings in life. If they left and then I went out of business, they did nothing. I quit doing something. I quit catering my customers. I quit giving good haircuts. I quit having the conversations that bring people into my business. They did nothing. That's where people, I think a lot of times feel like, or, you know, maybe I'm wrong for other businesses, but for mine, right? I don't want to feel like I'm giving people advice or anything, but for me, nobody in Tangipahoa Parish can do anything to hurt Matthew Alston's business, the bearded barber, except Matthew Alston. And that includes the men that work for me, right? Because at the end of the day, if they're screwing up and running customers off, that sits in my lap, and I have to address that. And either they have to leave or something has to change.
I think there's another side to it too, though. Because we had, you know, some folks left, and if they had gone about it in the way that those guys left you, and I know that you can't come to me and say, hey, I'm about to leave you, sort of thing. But in our case, it was, you know, very much more of a, you know, sort of a secret maneuver, sign contracts and spend money before you leave, take employees with you. And then,
well, that's dirty.
Even that I can get by with, because you're trying to make it for your family, whatever. But what I did not agree with is when you go out there and you make stories up. I literally was somewhere, I think Thursday night, and someone came up to me and were like, yeah, so I heard, you know, you had bought the company or a portion of the company from one of those people that left me. I'm like, just listen to yourself. I've been practicing law twice as long. I've had this company probably twice as long as they've been a lawyer. Like, that's not even feasible, right? But nobody thinks about that. And that's the sort of thing that bothers me. And not even from the point that someone would say it, is that you treated them so good. And it's like you just didn't deserve it. And I think that's what hurts more. It's like, I was good to these people, and they know better. And it's just like, man, at some point, can you please for once have some faith in humanity? Or do I just really have to scrap every ounce of faith in the majority of the people I encounter? You know?
I don't want to say you're wrong in your outlook, because I was there, right? The problem is you're putting faith in the wrong place.
Yeah, well,
I'm just
so
being
it's my
honest,
fault,
right? I shouldn't have my faith in you or me. Really, your faith should be in Christ. And I'm not saying it's not, but I'm talking every aspect of our walk. Okay, when those guys left me, I would say maybe one of them didn't do it correctly, right? One of them didn't leave me. One of them was already gone, and he opened a business, and I felt like he did some things that weren't on the up and up, right? But the other guy left me. That dude's just better than his family. I'm proud of him. And I hope the things that he learned under me is what's going to help him succeed today. I didn't do any of that for any of them or me. I did it because I felt like that's what Christ put on my heart. I want to help young men further their lives and be able to support their wives and their families. Now, the way they leave me or what they do once they're gone has nothing to do with Matthew. You know, I feel like them leaving me, right? Or anything I do, I had to quit. Man, you'll stay constantly disappointed in these people.
Yeah.
You will, you know, my wife and some of my friends used to get on to me because I really used to approach everything in life looking at it in its worst, right? I expected the worst out of Jeff when I met Jeff. When I shook his hand today, I expect the worst out of him. And I'm trying to get better at that, right? Because I'm sitting here saying that your faith is in the wrong place, but I still walk around looking at things that way, so maybe mine isn't always in the right place, right? Again, I ain't preaching at nobody. I'm sinning every damn day. But as long as you do that, you will never, ever be disappointed in someone. You will only be pleasantly surprised if they don't act in that manner.
Yeah.
That's a shitty way to look at life.
Yeah.
It really is. And look, when I got in that car accident and when I met my wife, it wasn't like it was just super clean. I mean, there was some lingering years there. Like this is very much a look back thing, right?
Yeah. When
Seeing
you look
that
back,
Christ worked in my
the
life.
positives pop out a lot more.
You know, it was the worst thing ever happened to me up at that point. I had drains coming out my legs and shit. So it's very much in retrospect and I'm, 2020 kind of thing. But at the end of the day, every failure in my life has been because of me.
Mm-hmm.
It's been because of no one else.
Yeah.
Whether it was that I made the wrong decision in who I hired or whether I put a bad, my business plan isn't the best in the world. And look, to have a business plan to where you're constantly making people be your competition's not the best business plan. But again, it's not on them to make sure I eat when they leave, brother.
Yeah.
That's on me. Now, I will say this conversation would probably be a lot different if I didn't have Christ in my life and him able to, really show me how to look at these things. Because again, it's not me. Matthew, I'm an asshole. I mean, really, I am. It's very easy to see that in me. I'm very short-tempered. I'm ornery most of the time. I hurt from my head, from my toe. I don't really want to do most things daily.
I've known you for a few years now. It hasn't popped out to me yet.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
But look, I hate to cut it off here, but we're out of time now. I do want to get you back because I feel like we got a lot still to cover. But
I don't feel like we accomplished a whole lot.
Oh no, dude! I think when you go back, you're gonna see like there's some real gems here. I feel like just in the sense of like people seeing, hey, this is a real guy. He's had real adversity. Look at what he's done with his business, and just putting bad stuff aside and focusing on the good. I mean, to look back and be like no matter how many times I ask you, it's like, the bad stuff is the bad stuff. But hey, look at this. I got in a car wreck. Met my wife. We get married. I get clean. I have 2 great kids. I got a great business. It's being successful. I can handle people. I mean, look, I'm trying to learn that from you right now. You got people that can leave me knowing they're going to be direct competition, but I know, nobody can affect it. The things in my life, like I can affect the things in my life. And
That's
I think
correct.
those are all real valuable things to hear.
Okay. Let's just look at it like this. How'd you feel about your competition when you started, Jeff? Because it was there.
Yeah, yeah.
And guess what? There's going to be a lot of other people open barbershops, and there's going to be a lot of other people open title companies.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it's all about what you and I do, right? It's all about, look, as my grandmother would have said, if you got one foot in tomorrow and one in yesterday, you're just pissing all over the day. I'm being serious, right? Because yesterday's gone. You're never going to change that, man. Real quick, before we get out of here, one of the hardest things to get clean was always saying, man, what's the point? Because everybody's always going to see me how I was yesterday. And until I got over that and realized that I ain't doing it for Jeff.
Yeah.
What's your name? I ain't doing it for Danny. Mm-hmm. I didn't do it for my wife. I didn't do it for my brothers. I didn't do it for my mother, my kids, anybody. Now, I will say this. If you can't get clean and you got kids, you got some serious problems going on, but that's not who we do it for. You got to do it for yourself to overcome that, right? So many kids, and that's in all walks of life. It ain't got to be in drugs, right? There's so many kids out here. When I say kids, I'm talking up to 25 years old, right? They made these like little stupid mistakes and they think they have to be branded, right? And a lot of times I feel like social media made the world a hometown, right? A little small town because, you can't fart in church without everybody. That's right. Well, here, like I said, if you fart in church, it's by tomorrow it's at school, Well, they've made the world that. Yeah. And worrying about what Jamie or Jenny or Sarah thinks about you, bro. How many people, now this is a hard question to get right, not say get right, but how many people do you see every day that you graduated high school with? Don't let Jeff answer that because he sees them all the time. But for me, for example, if I did not own my bar, if I did not own a business that brought all walks of life in there, I wouldn't see any of the guys that I grew up with unless I made a point to go and see them, right? And that's my best friends, dude that stood in my weddings, guys that I did things that my wife ain't never going to hear about, right? Only Jesus and that dude knows about it. Mm-hmm. I would never see these guys. So why does it matter what Lindy Lou thinks of you?
Yeah.
You know, just go do you and be successful in life. And whatever that is, dude, if you want to shine shoes, if you want to cutting grass, I know a dude that makes $400,000 a year cutting grass, ain't got an 8th grade education. Our society is made like, dude, they screamed and pushed college down our throats when I was growing up, bro.
Yeah.
I know dudes that make more money than 90% of the college graduates out here.
Yeah.
My cousin ain't got a college education. You know who I'm talking about.
I
mean, look how that dude ended up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, give me Granny one more time. What Granny say again?
If you got one foot in yesterday and one tomorrow, you pissing all over today.
All right, we'll end on that note, man. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much for having me, man.